64 points out of 72 in 24 matches, 10 points ahead of Bayern Munich, 61 goals scored and 16 conceded. These are Bayer Leverkusen's stats in the Bundesliga title race at the beginning of March. Are we daydreaming, or are we actually on the verge of seeing Bayern Munich finally fail to win the Bundesliga title? Or perhaps the more relevant question would be, will the Neverkusen curse finally be lifted? Well, we are truly close to seeing something that has never happened in the history of football. And yes, a miracle is the least that could be said about Xabi Alonso's work at Bayern since his arrival in October of 2022. He made Bayer Leverkusen not just a tactically solid team with versatility in its game, but changed the whole background of the club, using some techniques that could easily go on to be taught in the football books. But did he actually know what he was going to create upon his arrival 18 months ago? Had he even heard of the nasty Neverkusen curse that has haunted the club for more than 20 years? Let's talk about it.
Bayer Leverkusen are rocking the Bundesliga.
Victor Boniface, head down, charging, still going, and scoring.
The year is 2002, and Leverkusen was just 4 games away from becoming one of the few teams ever to win the treble, the domestic title, the domestic cup, and the Champions League trophy. The equation for the team at the beginning of May was as follows: 2 matches left until the end of the Bundesliga campaign, together with the German Cup final and the Champions League final. Now, those matches were not just any other game. They were the 4 most important games in the club's history. If Leverkusen had managed to win all 4, they would have won the treble. The first 2 of those 4 matches were in the Bundesliga, and the opponents were Nuremberg and Hertha Berlin. Leverkusen even had the luxury of drawing one of those 2 games, and they still would have been crowned champions for the first time in history. Leverkusen's main competitors for the title, Borussia Dortmund, were playing Hamburger and Werder Bremen. At least on paper, Leverkusen's job was the easier one, because Dortmund had to play 2 teams in the top 10 of the standings, with Bremen even in 5th, while Leverkusen was out against the 15th positioned Nuremberg in one of their crucial games. Well, the unexpected happened. Klaus Toppmöller's team, full of stars like Michael Ballack, Dimitar Berbatov, Lucio and Zé Roberto, lost their away game against Nuremberg in the 33rd round. In the meantime, Borussia Dortmund won dramatically against Hamburger 4-3, and in that moment, Leverkusen's fate was not in their hands. They had to hope that Dortmund would fail against Bremen at home in the last round, which was almost impossible. Due to fixture compilers, both matches started at the same time. 2 goals by Michael Ballack until the 50th minute more or less decided the positive outcome for Bayer in the game, but not in the title. Well, in fact, until the end of the first half of Dortmund's match against Bremen, things were going great for Leverkusen, as Borussia was losing 1-0 until the end of the first half. However, goals in the 41st and 74th minute crowned Dortmund as champions of Germany and brought millions of Leverkusen fans to tears. But still, they knew the team still had a chance for European glory, together with winning the second most important trophy in Germany. Actually, the cup final was first in order for Leverkusen, with the opponent being Schalke 04. And just as everyone thought that this team, arguably Leverkusen's strongest ever, just couldn't fail twice in a row, it happened again. The game was at the Olympic Stadium in Berlin, and Bayer lost miserably 4-2. Things started great for Leverkusen after Berbatov's goal, but then it all went from bad to worse. 4 quick goals for Schalke between the 45th and 85th minute ended Leverkusen's German Cup dreams, which, by the way, would have been their second ever. And like in any fairy tale, Leverkusen hoped that when there is a sad turn of events, there would still be a happy ending. Nothing like that. The team came up against Real Madrid in the Champions League final for one last attempt to win a trophy in that memorable campaign. And just when everyone thought the Spanish giant would crush this already shattered Leverkusen team, everything went in a completely different way. Yes, Raúl scored for Madrid in the 9th minute, making it 1-0, but Leverkusen then needed just 6 minutes to equalize with a goal from Lucio, stating that they would fight until the end for the ultimate triumph. However, a piece of genius by Zinedine Zidane crushed Leverkusen's hopes for a 3rd time in just a week, scoring one of the most iconic Champions League goals. The Frenchman received a very tough-to-handle pass from Roberto Carlos, but turned it into something spectacular that is still etched in the minds of fans around the world, shooting the ball with a perfect trajectory with a volley scoring right below the crossbar. Another memorable fact from that night was that Iker Casillas played his first Champions League final for Real Madrid, coming on in the second half after Hugo Sanchez's injury. He made some incredible saves, mostly after Dimitar Berbatov's shots, keeping Real Madrid's lead. Leverkusen players had the equalizing goal in their minds, but still couldn't get past the 21-year-old Casillas. The Spanish keeper amazed the entire world and became a regular starter for Real Madrid a season later. So, in the span of just 1 week, Leverkusen failed incredibly, missing the chance to not just win a treble for the first time, which to this day would have been one of the most exciting stories in football. They lost the opportunity to win a trophy that season, which would have been their first in the 21st century. After that, opposing fans and media around the world were so brutal with Bayer Leverkusen's failure that they started calling them Neverkusen instead, suggesting that the team would never win a trophy in their history. Furthermore, the star of the team, Ballack, had one more reason to literally hate the 2001-2002 season. Around a month and a half after the loss to Real Madrid, he played the World Cup final with Germany against Brazil and lost as well. Truly a year to forget for the great German midfielder. Now, before we continue, please consider subscribing to Footy Flicks for more engaging and interesting content. Now, let's jump 22 years forward into the present, when Leverkusen has a real chance to finally break that devastating curse. As I mentioned earlier, Xabi Alonso's team is 10 points clear of Bayern Munich 10 games before the end of the season. This actually means that, at the moment of speaking, Leverkusen are just 7 wins away from winning the Bundesliga for the first time ever, as they need 21 points to mathematically beat their biggest contenders. Tough months are surely ahead for Xabi Alonso, and at the end of May, his team could celebrate victoriously. But don't underestimate Munich, because they know best how to win, being on an 11-year title-winning streak. The moment that everyone realized that this Leverkusen team would be the real deal this season was when Xabi Alonso's boys were away at the Allianz Arena in mid-September. Leverkusen showed the hype around this team in Bavaria and totally outclassed Bayern, even though the game ended 2-2. As Alonso's football has developed over the past year and a half, it has also become exciting and fast-paced, as well as retaining its solidity. In that match in September, it was already clear to all of us that Alonso has a tactical flair for those big games and has matured a lot as a manager. Leverkusen's high press was often handled by Bayern. It resulted in a quick goal for them, as Harry Kane scored after just 7 minutes of play. In response, Alonso changed his approach when it came to the applied pressure, and restored balance in the middle of the park, instructing Jeremy Frimpong to play more inside the area. Another thing that Alonso encouraged his players to do was to drop back a few meters deeper, and he also changed the formation from 3-4-3 to 4-4-2. This decision almost immediately gave the needed results. Leverkusen handled Bayern's attacks and did not concede any more goals until the end of the first half. When they regained possession, they were precise and accurate in transition, and if it hadn't been for a few bad decisions, they could have scored more than 2 goals and taken the 3 points. Their fluent play all over the pitch was extremely impressive. Leverkusen has players who like to show their individual class, like Florian Wirtz, for example. But it was the chemistry of Alonso's boys that made their performance so convincing. And this was only the beginning of the season when Bayern really could have lost the game. Well, they actually did in the second league encounter between the two teams this season in February. This time, Leverkusen didn't make the mistakes that prevented them from getting the 3 points in September. Xabi Alonso's team was dominant, tactically perfect, assertive in every area of the pitch, individually brilliant, and at the same time, solid and compact in defense. Of course, the perfect duo of Jeremy Frimpong and Alejandro Grimaldo scored again, as both have been involved for a total of 40 goals for Leverkusen this season. Yes, everything for the team was perfect that night. Everything, down to the last detail, as Leverkusen won 3-0 at Bayer Arena, and made a huge step towards winning the Bundesliga, and most importantly, getting rid of its ugly nickname. What's your opinion, guys? Will Neverkusen actually win something this season? Whatever your answer is, write us down in the comment section below. And to make it even more mind-blowing for you about what Leverkusen could achieve this season, Alonso's boys are actually on a European treble run. They are in the semifinals of the German Cup, leaders in the Bundesliga, and in the knockout stage of the Europa League. So, Bayer could definitely win what they have been missing for those 22 years. If you liked our video, give us a thumbs up, or check out some of our latest videos. Thanks for watching. See you again soon here on Footy Flicks.